Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. We have, I think, a guy who's not very smart, and he is the Estonian Defense Minister. He is a guy who will make a claim, and I think the claim that he makes is idiotic, and I will demonstrate that is idiotic, illogical, and is not based on facts. I will show you, and he's not young, so he doesn't have that excuse. So he's 46 years old. I think at 46, you kind of have to know how the world goes around, and when you make a statement like this one, I think you should own it as not being very bright. I think, but how in the hell he's a defense minister? Let's see. So here it is. Ukrinform reports on the 18th of November 2023. This is the person in the subject of our conversation. Ukraine more adapted to war than Russia. Estonian Defense Minister. And since he's a defense minister and he needs to have logic and evidence-based conclusions and assessments. The Ukrainian army is the world champion in combining different types of weapons and is more adapted to war than the Russian army. All right, well, when was that competition? Oh, that competition is in Ukraine, in the war in Ukraine? Okay. Estonian Defense Minister Hanno Pavkur, Kur means button, to be nice in Romanian, said this in an interview with RBC Ukrinform reports, and I'm quoting, pay attention to the words. I also said that the Ukrainian army is currently the world champion in combining different types of weapons. You have a lot of military equipment and you have to adapt to its use, he said. Oh yeah, it's true. It's true. That's true. But how can we compare that with the Russians? How good the Russians are. Okay. He noted that the Ukrainian army shows an example of adaptation and training in the use of new weapons. Yes, that's true. It shows on its own. But when you want to compare with someone, you have to compare it at the same game. What's the same game? The variety of weapons they receive. So let me see what this guy has to say. And I'm quoting Mr. Parkour. But we have to adapt and act accordingly. Correct. Therefore, I believe, that's a word that should not be used. You don't believe, you think, you assess, you reason. If you believe, I believe, I can fly. All right. I believe that this is also a message that during the war, the Ukrainian army showed that it is able to adapt. Correct. So, are we more adaptable than Russia? Yes, I think so. We are together with the Allies. If you compare a Ukrainian soldier trained in Western countries with a Russian prisoner, you obviously have a better quality of training. All right, well, training. Adaptability. Adaptability, he says, that is based on what? On how they adapted, right, to the war. So we are more adaptable to the Russians. Okay, so the point is this. We are more adaptable because of the variety of weapons we receive. The Russians did not receive the weapons. So how are we going to compare with the Russians? It's like you say, well, I'm a better football player than you, but I play with a football, with a ball, but you don't have a ball to play with. So how do I know that if I would pass the ball for a while, you would not be better than I am? Or let's say you have a ball and I have a ball, or I have two balls, you have two balls, and we play with them, click, 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 okay? And after a while, we come together and see which one is doing better. But in this case, the Westerners did not supply the Russians with new equipment, did they? They supplied Ukraine. So the Ukrainian military adapted very well, very good. But you can't say that they adapted better than the Russians who did not have the same weapons to adapt to. Like, give me the weapons and I'm going to use them. Unless the Russians had the same amount and variety of weapons that the Ukrainians received, so they both received the same, then we can figure out who adapted better to the weapons they received. And again, if you want, with how do you call it? With training. Yes, the Ukrainians were trained by the British. I don't know why the Brits would have more experience than the Ukrainians, but hey, that beats me. Why? The Ukrainians have been fighting in their country since 2014. 8 years. The Brits were fighting where? In a different warfare. Where? In Fallujah? That's where they were fighting? In Iraq and Afghanistan? That's their experience. So that's a different warfare now than the Brits ever fought. Ever. That's why when I see the Canadians are training the Ukrainian army, in what? In using the left hand or what? Because really, what experience they really have? These guys, I think, the adaptation to war that the Ukrainians and the Russians have had to in their war, in the tactics. And you see, the war right now is just shelling and SUVs, yes. Drones and shelling. That's what it is right now. Mostly, the Brits or the Canadians, the Americans have never fought such a war. So they are novices. So that means the Ukrainians have to train these guys who are right now observing what's going on over there. And still is wanting to observe, and the other thing is to get involved in it. So again, I think the Ukrainians should train everybody else. And they will. Because the war evolved in something that these guys have never been before. None of these guys who train the Ukrainians, it's true that certain things, are the same. But do you think the Ukrainians were raised in caves or something? They didn't study the art of war? The warfare? They didn't study when they didn't look at you guys when you fought over there and over there and over there? They think they were just playing chess and drinking vodka or something? My friends, this is imbecilic. So, the title is that the Ukraine more adapted to war than Russia. And then he says here, Ukraine's army is the world champion in combining different types of weapons and is more adapted to war than the Russian army. Why? Because of the prisoners? You're not winning with all the NATO, with all the weapons, with all those commanders. What are you talking about? That's about what? More than 20 countries on that side versus one country on this one. So who's more adaptable? I mean, these guys expected that NATO will kneel these guys in what? No time, economically, militarily, and politically, and socially. They thought the Russians would go and strangle Putin in 2 weeks after they imposed the first round of sanctions. That's how I don't want to really say, because it could be both ways, not both ways, in 2 ways. One, they were ideologues, and they were just, delusional, or they did it knowing that the Russians will not collapse. And they will do it the second time, the third, the fourth, the fifth, because actually the guys who pushed everybody to sanction Russia was not Germany, was not France, was United States of America, and Great Britain was the second fiddle. Yeah, play Paganini, play, I'm here with you, I'm coming. That's how they were. So maybe it was about destroying the European continent's economy. Therefore, you slap sanctions on those guys maybe collapse, maybe don't collapse. We're gonna come and take over once you just shoot yourselves in the feet, pam pam pam, and you are not gonna have gas, cheap gas. We're gonna give you liquefied natural gas and other garbage gas, more expensive and oil than the Russians, and your economy cannot compete with our services. So maybe that's a different take on things. Not only, they miscalculated. The same with the Iraq war and with Afghanistan. We're thinking, how in the hell the Americans got so, drawn in that garbage thing to attack? That was a mistake. No, it was not a mistake. It was a mistake for us as people, as citizens. Not for them. For them, they had companies ready to reconstruct. The military-industrial complex, again, thrived. The banks thrived. All those guys that right now thrive then again. So I don't think that was a mistake when US invaded to bring freedom and democracy. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so the same here. Maybe, Ukraine is not only that. Who's going to reconstruct all this? Do you know what happened you can see what happened with the military, with the weapons in all the Western countries, and not only in Poland and Czech Republic. They got rid of the old equipment and they buy new equipment. From where? From the guys who made them impose sanctions on this, and hey, you got to send things to Ukraine. And who pays for that? Banks. They don't pay for that, by the way. They lend you the money, right? You borrow it. They lend you the money, and then you, taxpayers, are going to receive the tab, and your children, and our children, not only, and grandchildren, and so on. So that's how the things works. What do you think? Oh, we love the Ukrainians, come over here. I all dreamed all my life to get involved in this and get against those Russians, wreck my life, and my children's have a worse standard of living because I love Ukrainians and I hate those guys over there. You think that's the way to? Have you been waiting for this moment all your life? Jesus Christ. I hope he's coming. From where? I don't know. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just. So yeah, that guy is very smart, very smart. He's a player, he's a football player, he's the best, the world champion. But the other one does not play football because doesn't have the ball this guy had. You can't compare because they're not the same. Give me the weapons and see who adapts better to the same weapons. It didn't say warfare. Combining different types of whatever. Thank you very much for being with me again today. See you next time.